That's for you, because what you're doing is largely spiritual work, quite frankly. You're working with the human spirit, and you're helping people discover that they are more important than what they know. So we have a lot of common denominator here as to what our charges are. Mine is working now with the very senior end of the spectrum, but yours is working with people that are developing and hopefully will be talent for the future. Something you see that looks like somebody threw up on a piece of paper. This is called a mind map. Anybody seen this type of an outline before? Yep, okay. This is, for those of you that are fans of Prairie Home Companion, anybody? Garrison Keillor? All right, if you want to follow his Tales of Lake Wobegon, okay, if you want to really, because that's, you wonder where in the world is he going on this thing. Just draw a theme in the middle, and then just these radiants are all the little stories that he's talking about, the weather, whether the corn's going to come in, the pontoon boat, and somehow or another at the end of it, it all comes together and you go like, wow, how did he do that? Okay, that's non-linear thinking, okay? Where I actually learned this, the first time I saw it officially was in the 70s, but when I learned it was actually in the 50s. And it was my first significant mentor, Mrs. Handorf, in the 5th grade. And Mrs. Handorf, I was the type of kid, okay, that, what is it, for hyperactive kids that can't sit, can't pay attention, everything, what do we do for them? We give them some sort of medication, right? And what is it? Ritalin. Yeah, okay. Well, I would have been, had that been the program back then, I would have been a kid that would have been drinking a gallon of that stuff. But fortunately, Mrs. Handorf recognized that I had some sort of potential, even though I was a huge pain in her class, and that I tried to sit in the back, and then I would fidget, and I would try to talk to people, and I would even get up and walk around because I could not sit still, okay? And what Mrs. Handorf did is she took it for about 6 weeks, had a chat with my mom, and that didn't necessarily produce anything other than, your father's going to deal with this when he gets home. And so that was the wrong direction. And finally, Mrs. Handorf pulled me aside after class and said, sit down, I need to talk to you. And I thought, I'm in big trouble. This is the next step is principal's office. I'm in real trouble. But I wasn't. What she saw in me is what a lot of you, if you open up and really experience what's coming to you, is some amazing talent that is seriously a diamond in the rough. There's so many youth today that would be in my kind of situation where it just takes somebody to sit down and spend some time with them. And what Mrs. Handorf came up with my ideas thrown into the mix was, why don't you sit up in the front of the class and why don't you help me keep track of what I say for the whole hour, okay? And I said, well, okay. And then at the end of it, you tell me what I said. Okay. Mind map in the 50s. Lee Berglund made a fortune out of this with the personal resource system and teaching mind mapping and everything. That was something that, it was just a natural thing. First time I saw mind mapping, I said, I've been doing that for a long, long time. And it's a brilliant way to work. So this is basically what we're going to do in the next just about an hour, okay? I've been a benefactor of some amazing, absolutely amazing mentors, one of which is Ross Perot. Whatever you think about him as far as from the standpoint of running for president or whatever, if you remember that, he's a gifted business person, absolutely gifted business person. When I got out of the Navy in 1969, I went to work for Ross when his company had 323 people in it, so it was brand new. And that was an absolutely stellar absolutely amazing experience. It was like going to Harvard and picking up a practical MBA, in that he had me doing more things at my age at that point, which was all of 23. He had me doing more things than when I was an executive with State Farm at the end of my career when I was 65. And the reason is that Ross made certain that if he was going to give you the keys to the store, the corporate checkbook, to go build something, that you needed to have such a clear picture that you could absolutely not only envision it, but you could describe it back to him and the people that would be the players to help you build it in great detail, down to the very last thing. And to have other people help you and create the idea in a collective way. And that experience working with Perot was made me want to get my own business, for one thing, which I did. And State Farm seemed to be about the best business opportunity at that point in the 70s. So I did go that direction. I mentioned now that I'm doing kind of lay pastor work. And so much of this stuff is so related. I don't want to take too terribly much time about me. I want to get it in to spend more time about you and your experiences so far in mentoring. So if you take a look at your mind map, the next part of this thing is you. And when you look up the definition of mentor, you're going to find very quickly, I'm sure probably most of you have done it, that mentor is both a verb and it's a noun, and it actually can be other particles of speech too. So you mentor people, you are the mentor, and you have been mentored. Okay? All of those things. So with that just said, let's just talk about, most of you are not brand new to this. A fair number of you have been doing this for 3 and 4 years. So this time, let's not talk so much about Strive. Let's talk about your own personal experience of being mentored and how that worked, and what you're bringing from that experience directly into the Strive program. So this is interactive from this point forward, okay? Interactive. So anybody got a mentor experience, briefly, a mentor experience that is profound? Anybody got a Mrs. Handorf experience themselves? Yes. Okay. First name?
My first name?
First name. Carol?
Yes.
Okay, Carol. Would you be willing to share it a little bit?
I would.
Good. Go for it.
I had a wonderful mentor who I still consider a mentor even though we don't work together. It was one of those people who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and had me look at different positions. It was kind of mid-early career, I guess, that I didn't think I was ready for, but they said, "You're ready for this," and threw me in and challenged me to different things. And when I thought, I'm not qualified to do this, they said, "Yep, you are, and you can move through it." And never really saw what they saw in me, but it was something. And to this day, the person's moved far, far away, but we still keep in touch, and they let me know how special I was to them.
So why do you stay in touch?
She's just an amazing woman.
And what about her is amazing?
She's wise. I love that word wise. I think that's the greatest compliment you can give anybody. Call them wise. She's still achieving things herself, even though a lot of obstacles have come into her life and thrown her off the path that she thought she was going to. One of those kinds of things where, a very personal example for her is that she was going along at a great clip, had 2 kids, raised, etc., found herself turning around 55-ish, and one of the grown children, who had 3 children of their own, fell into a drug path, and my mentor ended up adopting her grandchildren.
Wow.
And so just when she was about ready to end her professional career and say, I'm flying up to wherever I want to go, her whole life started over again Facebook where the youngest of them just graduated from high school, started college, and so now she and her husband are taking this long-awaited trip to Greece, probably 15 years later than they ever thought they were going to. But
Oh, neat.
that was it.
Interesting. On mentoring and having been mentored, one of the things that that I've gleaned out of this, and I think you have too, and that is that the mentor's life, their example, and the feelings that you're picking up about being with them is their message. Okay? You want to be like her. Wow. Okay? And that is such an amazing transfer, is that I want to have a life like that. That's the beginning, okay? That curiosity, that feeling like that's what I'm looking for. So your life is on display in a very good sort of way. Very good sort of way. You wouldn't be here if you weren't the right type of person. You just wouldn't. People don't volunteer to be mentors unless they're the right stuff, okay? It doesn't mean you know how to do it. It doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect at it. It means that you have had the experience, and this is your opportunity to pay it back. So, outstanding. One more. That's really, really good. Thank you. One more. Got to be one more. You're all. Thank you. First name.
Joe.
Joe.
This is my first boss, a guy named Jack Park, was a tight end for the Gophers. And it was, we were training how to sell computers. They were $35,000, $40,000, $50,000 a pop back in the 70s. But before we could do that, they'd give us a calculator to learn, and you'd go out and try to sell it. So I got this financial calculator. I learned 360-day years, 360. I just had this thing backwards and forwards. So I tucked it under my arm in an order form, and I went down the street, walked into a bank, saw a bunch of them. Hey, do you want one? They said, yeah, we'd love one. How much is it? And I said, $199. So I sold it for $199. And I was back to the office in half an hour, and Jack's in his office. I said, hey, Jack, I just sold this calculator. And he goes, spin the bottle, because, you know, we drink beer, whatever. That was his deal. I say, spin the bottle. And he goes, what is it? He looked at the thing, and he just starts laughing, and he goes, Joe, this is a $650 calculator. And he sold it for $199. And he goes, spin the bottle. So he goes, we're going to go out, and this was like 10 in the morning, we're going to go out to the Belmont Club, and we're going to drink beer. And the thing is, I thought, that made an impression on me, because he didn't care that I just lost the company $500. It's like, I sold something.
Yeah.
Really fast.
Yeah.
And he just like, and then, you know, after that, I had a really good career with them, and it was because, you know, it was one of those moments, I'm either going to get fired or something. So that was the thing that I learned from him, was that he was just happy that you made something freaking happen, and it happened fast. And he goes, he didn't care. And that's really helped me out, because when you have employees, if they do the right thing, you really can't, everybody's got their style, and you got to celebrate the success, and you have to celebrate the style, and then you just have to let them know how much the thing really costs. So that just really, really stuck with me, and I remember it as plain as day, and it's really made a huge impact on my attitude working with other salespeople.
Terrific. This is these stories and what brought you into this not only make you special, but it's a gift that's transferable. Okay, that's the part that it took me a fair period of time to understand is that the things that happened to me all along, those pieces, to learn to start to connect the dots and take a look at it and say, could I do this for some other people in other situations? And the answer is, yeah, I probably could. But how did it happen to me? How did I get that? How did I move from here to there? What did Ross Perot do that was special? What did some of my other mentors do? Was there any particular thing? So if you think about, all right, he didn't penalize you. He was legitimately happy that you sold something And just that fast. He knew that you were the right stuff, right? That was a gift, and it could be developed. You got thrown into the deep end of the pool because she knew you knew how to. It's right. You could swim, and you figured it out. Exactly. She saw that. You weren't so sure, right? Nope. But you didn't hit the bottom, right? Nope. Was she there just in case? Yeah, exactly. So on that sales call, my guess is that after that, it would be, now let's talk about something that actually costs over $600, right? Yep. You don't want to sell something that costs $50,000 for $5,000, though. That could. Yeah, exactly.
There was a lot of bottle spinning there.
Yeah. A lot of beer. Yeah. All right. Next little line that comes across, it says, "Once I was lost, but now I am found." For those of you that I wonder where that comes from, basically. Lots and lots of things, but probably originally out of Luke 15:24. So, I was once lost, thinking now you're mentee, okay? I'm feeling lost, all right? I'm your mentee, but I want to be found, all right? So, how do we move from lost to found? So, what is our goal? What's our goal? So at the end of all of this, when we're sitting in March, what is it? May? Wow, May. We're sitting in May and we're saying, all right, this has been an incredible year for Strive. We really had a terrific year. What did we do? So what's the result look like? If we had it today, we're in May, what would we be celebrating? What would we spin the bottle for? Great. Terrific.
We hope they come back. McGee's not here, so I don't know if anybody else offended their kids.
Yeah. So one of the things that, I heard Carol, right? Yep, Carol, in that your mentor and longtime friend now, okay, which is not uncommon. Are you still in touch with an old boss? Oh, he passed away. But up until that point? Yep, okay. One of the things that they helped us do, okay, is find our on button, okay? And actually, Ladd said it. It's about engagement, okay? And right now, a lot of them are coming in suspended motion. Some, fortunately, you're going to have second, maybe year to work with them, so they already have some tread on the road and they're moving forward, hopefully. But for a lot, they're in suspended motion. And what you do have right off the bat is huge amounts of curiosity. Okay? So now the key is how do we, some way, shape, or form, turn their on button on? Okay? And this is where a couple of things I just sort of as a sidebar, this is on your little outline, to help them find their outline, their on button. But the Joseph Campbell, anybody a fan of Joseph Campbell, read any of his work, etc.? Remember the classic was follow your bliss, right? I mean, that's his magic phrase, follow your bliss. Well, that's dandy if you know what it is. And in some cases, these young adults don't. Or what they think might be bliss is in reality heading towards disaster. And we can help them out on that one. So to help them discover and be more, I want to be like Carol, I want to be like Joe, by your personal example, is what is that? What is it that drives them? You've got, both of you definitely have found your bliss, okay? I mean, you found it, okay? So once you found it, and then you follow it. So those are two different things. We're in the business of helping them find it at this point, and then next to help them follow it. Now we get into training horses. Susan mentioned that I've been involved in horses or extreme sports for most of my life, and I'm now extreme sport with a small e. No more capital E, extreme sports. No more trips to the orthopedic surgeon. No more ERs. I'm benched from that. My wife, when I carry my cell phone, and she says if you're out on a long ride or doing something and I get a 911 call, I'm just going to forward that to the ambulance service and give them your GPS location. They can come get you. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not too much. Okay, on training horses, which I was involved in, a lot of sports having to do with endurance riding and another sport called ride and tie. And what does that have to do with being a mentor? Everything. Because if you're going to work with an animal that's basically a small horse is 750 pounds, and most of them are 1,000 plus. And the horses that we use for endurance racing and for ride and tie, which is a fairly esoteric sport involving running and riding, but all over distance and all in the kind of stuff that you're going to be involved in, lad, with your race this weekend. Nasty, nasty stuff. I mean, these are our courses are the double black diamond stuff in Park City, Utah. Those are our courses. So, I mean, up and down those hills and with horses. And the key on this is these horses, they can't be unruly. They've got to have a really good idea what this is all about, and it's got to be fun to them. You can't punish a horse to do this kind of thing. So if you take a look at the 7 rules for training horses, the very, very first thing, it gets to be, yeah, I know that. Yeah, okay, I understand that, Jim. I got that. You need, first thing when you show up at any kind of deal, we're talking now horses or mentee, either way, you need to be present. Okay, but that's not so easy. It's just not so easy. All right? You've got stuff that happened before you came into this room, and we all have stuff that's going to happen at 8 o'clock tonight, okay, that we might want to watch. All right? You will be out of here in time for that, for sure. So we've got all that. And then we got our cell phone in our pocket, and we got our to-do list, and then all of the things. And gee, did I remember to get gas on the way home? Oh, man, did I get that done? Oh, I don't remember. So all of a sudden, your mind is here, there, and everywhere. And horses pick that up in a heartbeat. That's for sure the best way to get kicked. For sure. Okay? And when you're working with somebody that you are just now in the early goings going to be a serious curiosity, okay, unless this is the second year, in which case then you're already a bit of a proven product. But at the same time, it's still now, what are we going to do now? So we still have that same aspect of, are you really going to be with me, or are you going to be just sort of with me? Are you going to be answering your cell phone, if it should ring when they're with them, or are you going to leave it in the car? Are you going to be given an assignment and then taking notes or doing something else? Can you be 100% with them when you're with them? And I just think about this from the standpoint that if you're working with a brand new horse, and this horse is going to first of all look at you, then look away, but the ears are going to look at you. They're not going to let you out. Remember, horses can see about like that. We can see here, they can see there, but they can't see here, right dead front. So they'll give you an eagle eye like this, etc. So the key is, can you really be present and not multitask, only do this for right now, period. So it's almost a form of meditation with a focus on them, only them. The second one is to have a clear picture of what it is that you want to accomplish. And this I already talked about with Ross Perot. That was the number one thing. You know, I had a corporate checkbook at age 23 and 24 where I could literally commit $1 million of the company's money. And this is in 69 and 60 and 70, those 2 years. That was a lot of money. State Farm allowed me to commit that kind of money, but that was 5 years ago. So if you take a look at the difference, they wouldn't let me commit more than that. And Ross Perot probably would have. But I had to have a very, very clear picture. And that is transferable to a lot of people, and it can be felt. So if, in fact, you're working with your mentee and you have the clear picture, all right? So at this point, is it realistic to transfer? Remember what if we had the result, okay, what it would be? And the result would be? Yep. Perfect. Okay. So now that's a significant result, right? Okay. All right. Would that be a good idea to share that with them right up front? Think so? Okay. All right. Okay, let's think about that one a little bit. Not yes or no, but just think about it. Put it in the thinking pile here. All right. The next part on this, if you take a look, is what you want to accomplish reasonable? Is that reasonable? Shrug. That's right. You don't. And you don't really know them, right? Okay. So now I'm going to go back to the horses. So I am present. I've got this relatively new to me horse that I saw that had been abused, and I thought, this horse looks like it could really be salvaged and be a really neat horse. He just had an incredible spirit to him. Absolutely amazing spirit. And that turned out to be his name, Spirit. But when I got him, he weighed about 550 pounds. So he was all skin and bones. He could hardly stand. My dad and I had to sling him in a trailer in order to get him home, and we didn't know if we were going to be able to resurrect him or we just have to put him down out of humanity. You've got to almost stop feeding him so they don't gorge and create a problem on colic, etc. So slowly but surely we nursed Spirit back to health. And my picture on this horse, as I started to get to know him, as I thought, this is a horse that I think that I could do some of the things that I've seen the Native Americans and some of the really outstanding horse trainers do. And that is to be able to ride this horse cross country with no saddle and no bridle. Just me on it, totally bareback, through the mountains, and with all just leg and seat commands. Nothing and no halter. Okay? That was my clear picture. Right. Okay, so if I had shared that with Spirit, if that was possible, he would have said, oh yeah? Now your clear picture, I think, is realistic, okay? Because this is something that the program is based on, and I think a fair number of the mentees already know this up front. Do they know that up front?
I sure hope so.
You bet. Okay, so it is a clear picture, but maybe not totally realistic or reasonable at this point. So how am I going to take a horse that fundamentally now he hadn't been ridden? So this is a horse that basically had no commands whatsoever. You know, you wouldn't want to get on a horse like that. First of all, when he finally got back to a vital spirit, this was one spicy meatball. The name Spirit was very accurate. He was a spirited animal. So I picked the right one to be able to do this, because these events are up to 100 miles. So they're long distance events. That's in a 24-hour period, incidentally. So not days long, 1 day long. So if you want to accomplish something like this, you've got to start with something that might be reasonable and realistic. So when you're going to grab your mentee and you understand what the goal is, what do we start with? What could you start with that's going to be realistic, where you can set this thing up so there'd be a good experience out of it? What could you start with?
Building confidence.
Building confidence, okay, all right. Go ahead, just shout them out.
Turn in your homework.
Turn in your homework, okay. All right, yeah. All right, so, and that's a good one. That's a really good one. Building confidence, and both of those pair together. So now take a look, the next one, all right. Do you have their attention? So where are their ears? Gee, my dog ate the homework. Okay. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. Not. Okay. So how are we going to get their attention?
Well, you gotta reward them.
Could be. Could be. Anybody else? That's not wrong. Find out their interests. This is good. Okay. Remove distractions. Okay. What else? Yep. Start small and build up. Okay. With horses, you know how we do it? Remember I told you that their vision, they can see way out here as opposed to us right about here, but they can't see right here. So, boom, we just hit them right there. Okay? Just, you could see it coming, but Spirit could never see it coming. Now, you can't do this very often, okay? You can't. Because they can catch on to that real fast, but at the same time, it works like a champ initially. And the other part of it is that when you know, all of a sudden you just see that they're, I'm paying attention, so, okay, boom, all of a sudden, now you have a window of opportunity. What? You got a window of opportunity. Right there is where you need to make your point. You've got less than 30 seconds to make the point, okay, of what it is. So it needs to be something that's important. You don't ask for attention unless there's really something to fill that void that's significant, okay? So on horses, they only will, the idea on being able to ride this horse without a saddle, without a bit in its mouth, without stirrups, without any kind of spurs, certainly, or any artificial aids, is that they move away from, is it okay if I touch you for a second? Okay, they move away from touch. Now, am I touching you very hard? Okay, that would actually be hard for a horse that's well trained, okay? But initially, it might have to be hard enough where I'm actually going to move that whole chair. But this is where the next thing comes up, okay? I've got their attention. You need, and this is an art form, and this is where your mentee artistry really comes in, is that to set the circumstances up where it's easy for the right thing to happen and difficult for the wrong thing to happen. So the first thing is, what's the right thing? Back to homework. What's the right thing?
Do it.
And?
Turn it in.
Yes. Okay? And it's complete, correct? Okay. And they did it themselves. Okay. All right. Okay? So what's the wrong thing? My dog ate it.
Yeah, make up an excuse.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
My
even
dog.
worse than not doing it.
Yes. So we have an idea what the right thing is, and we also have an idea what the wrong thing is. So with the horses, I'm trying to set this up. And that's the key. First, understanding what it is clearly that you're trying to accomplish. But then the other part, and this is the art form, how do I set that up? So back to horses. So if I know that I need to move you this way, right? Okay? The natural thing is for horses initially, when they're pushed like that, which way do they go?
Lean into you.
Yep, exactly. Yep, they lean right back into you. Okay? So if you can set up the circumstances where you understand what's going to happen, you can correct the movement before the situation gets out of hand. So let's go back to homework. How are we going to set up get the homework done, turn it in. I did it myself, and it's complete. How are we going to set it up? You don't have to do this all yourself. You can pick on somebody. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do it? Team? How are we going to do it? Okay. And how would we set up an expectation? A timeline. Okay. Are they used to working with timelines, do you think? No. Okay. So that doesn't mean you're wrong, okay? But this is where we have to think things through. This is the process. You're used to working in a corporate or a business or a very polished type of situation. That's how you got there. They're not, okay? Some have some training in this, but most don't. Consequently, we've got to think about how we're going to set this thing up. So how are we going to set it? Back to homework. Great one. Great one. You don't have to do it. You can pick on somebody.
Include them in the conversation. Have them help figure out what it is, what those expectations are going to be and how they plan to get there.
Okay.
Have them kind of have the skin in the game, have them help figure it out, can help too, instead of someone just telling them they need to do it, being like, hey, let's figure out how we're going to get there together.
Perfect. I heard let's, which implies more than you.
Yes.
Okay? Yes.
You can ask them, do you have a good place to do homework?
Great.
How long do you think it'll take to do this homework?
Great.
When do you have some free time to do it?
Yep.
This be a good time?
Yep. Okay. Why should they do the homework anyway?
Improve their grades.
Why should they improve their grades?
They have options after they graduate.
Maybe they don't understand those options. I'm not picking on you. Just this is where we have some understanding and pieces that they don't. So this is the art form part. Yes.
That's longer term, if they're maybe trying to survive next week. Make
Yes.
it to the exam, so how
Yes.
it's going to build, and every time you miss, it builds, and it gets more and more challenging.
Right.
But content matters today, now.
So back to the horse. Okay, we're going to go move back and forth here. Back to the horse. So all of a sudden, if the consequences, it feels nice. Okay, it feels nice. And all of a sudden, this now feels like, okay. And he goes this way because I'm setting the circumstance up where he naturally is going to move that way. And then I go, good job. Well done. Good job. Wow, Spirit, good job. All right. He moved that far. Okay. But good job, Spirit. That was really good. Okay. So homework. Back to homework. You gave me a great one here, Carrie. This is good. All right. So we have expectations. We don't know. I mean, grades, etc. Okay, fine. Same time. What in setting up the circumstances? So how in their world would be turning in homework a good idea and feel favorable? It's the right thing in their mind, and the wrong thing would be to not. Okay? Think about the horse. It felt good to go that way and not so good to lean into me. Okay? Because I had this little crop. Every time that he leaned into me, I gave him a little poke. Ah! Wow. And every time he went that way, good, Spirit. Way to go, buddy. Okay? All right. So, how are we going to set the homework up?
Well, I wish we could do that, but we get arrested.
Yes, you would. Yes, you would. Mercy. I'm okay with that. All right. So we on the homework thing, if we get somebody that now says to Carrie, who set this thing up, and by place, etc., and all of a sudden they want to tell you, not just the teacher, I turned in my homework and actually I did pretty well on it. So what do you do?
Get really excited.
Yes.
Positive.
Bing! High five. Okay, way to go. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So we set things up where it's easy, and I said in here that great artists are in demand. That's the truth. People who can do this and do it on a fairly consistent, you don't get them all right. You just don't. Okay, even the very best mentor, trainers, coaches, horse trainers, etc., they don't get it all right. There are just days when it all goes to crap. But at the same time, most of the time, this does work if you really think it out in advance. So here's reward, notice here, reward for an honest try. Okay? So does that mean if the homework didn't get in, that we reward? Think about this now. Could there have been a reason that the homework didn't get in? Could there? Okay, so that would be the first thing. Was there something that actually prevented the homework from getting in? Or was it just going to push back? In which case, then a little poke with the crop. Okay? But if it was going in the right direction, then it is a reward. And if there was a really good reason for it, then that's an understanding. Okay? I mean, that's a part of the understanding, because there are pieces that you just can't know as a mentor. You can't. Even if you've spent a lot of time with your mentee, there are just going to be pieces that you don't know. As many years as you've had your experience with your mentor and friend, does she know really everything about you? No. But she knows the really good things about you that she saw in the beginning and has worked with that, right? Okay. So there, and she understands when something just doesn't go right, that there may be things that she just doesn't know, period. Because you're either, she didn't ask the right questions, or she didn't ask enough questions, exploration. She didn't think it through enough, or you weren't willing to tell her that. But that doesn't mean that it's all for naught. It just means that that particular thing didn't work. So we're moving on. Okay? All right? And then the biggest thing is, if they are going in the right direction, and you are, and I heard this, forgot your first name. John? Chuck. Chuck, is it okay if I use a little bit of your experience? Is that all right? All right. Chuck had, it went good, and then it didn't go good. And then it went good, and then it didn't go good, but we're trying to set it up now so that it's going to go good. Okay? That fairly good set? All right. Short thumbnail sketch. All right. When we have a situation where we do have some wins, okay, those are the things that we need to capitalize on, because there are some strengths there, correct? Okay, that's it. So Spirit, in the very beginning, what was his greatest strength? You wouldn't know this, so I'll just have to tell you, because I'm going to stand back from him so you don't actually demonstrate this. And that was, he could bite you like you wouldn't believe. Just that fast. You'd turn your back and bam, get you. Not enough to break the skin, just enough to leave the biggest welt you ever saw. And man, my right side had welts all over it. He bit me here and here. One time, I couldn't believe it, how he managed to get all the way down and grab my calf just that fast. It's like, how can he do that? He had an amazing talent. Okay? But it was. I mean, not every horse can do that. Usually you can see it coming. And this one, he was just grease lightning fast. So any horse with reactions that fast and be able to figure things out that fast can come right back up to, wasn't me. I didn't do that. I don't know where you got that, Dad, but wasn't me. Okay? Any horse that was that good, I thought, he has reactions that are way beyond what most horses have. And the ability to be able to capitalize on that was huge, even though it looked like something like you just want to cold cock him, Never did, because I never caught him in the act. I knew it had to be him, but I couldn't catch him in the act. So on all of this, back to now our clear picture. So you remember my clear picture in the very beginning? What was it that I'm trying to do with Spirit? Not just ride bareback. That would be a good start, just to ride bareback. Yeah, absolutely. So cross country, over the mountains, in heavy terrain. How far? 100 miles. Okay, has anybody ever done that before? Yes, that's right. Exactly. And some very well-trained horses and riders have been able to do that too. I actually did do that, but I wasn't allowed to not have a halter on the horse because the rules of the particular race would not allow a horse completely with no control on it at all. So I had to have what's called a lindell on him, which it just fits around. It's just basically like a halter. So I had that. So I had some sort of control, but I didn't need it. The key, this last one, is we're striving for self-carriage. Okay? Self-carriage is the most amazing thing. This is where you are. Okay? You are, by and large, in self-carriage. That's why you're in a program like this now, being able to transfer some of these skills because you have been mentored, all right? And you have become a mentor. So we have verb and noun. And now we're looking at the direct transfer of what you have received to be able to transfer it to another human being that has potential but doesn't know it. Okay? So I felt that Spirit could be the most amazing horse, and he turned out to be. It took 2 years of working with Spirit pretty much every single day before I was able to accomplish what we, Spirit and I, set out to do. And in the beginning I said that have a clear picture, that clarity can be felt. Okay, in the beginning, the answer is maybe not. But the more that we got on with the program and the more homework that got turned in, and like, Carrie, look at this, I got an A. Okay, right direction, right? Okay, now we have the beginning of a full-blown picture. And the full-blown picture, Joe, looks like, what's our goal for Strive? Exactly. Exactly. And they got to turn in their homework to do that? Correct. So we start with something relatively simple, celebrate wins, and we get out to that. So now they go a step further. Some of you are going to be working with seniors? Yep. Okay. And we're looking at, have any of you got anybody that graduated out of the Strive program that is now actually in college? Perfect. Okay. And this is their first year? First year, so they're freshmen. Okay. Are you excited? Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So back to horses. So first time I'm in Cuyamaca State Park in Southern California, and I decide, okay, I've been able to do this in the ring, and I've been able to do this in our pastures and everything. Let's see what this would be like for real in the big woolly. Okay, so Cuyamaca State Park is, to get around it, it takes pretty much a whole day. It's a really big park, unfortunately burned badly a number of years ago. But in any event, I took Spirit up and got on the trail and decided, well, this is graduation day, okay? Freshman, right? Now let's just see how this all goes. So Spirit saw the wide open woolies and all that unrestricted, beautiful, just forest and pasture. And what do you think he did?
Started drinking beer.
Started drinking beer. Yeah. He actually did drink beer. Yeah. Yeah. So, but what he did was somewhat predictable, just like a freshman, you know. Yeah, okay.
You've known all three of mine.
Yeah, I have. They all did very well, though. Yeah, so the clear picture was very transferable. So initially, it was a train wreck about ready to happen to me, you know, and that we went hell-bent for leather for about 10 minutes, flat out. And boy, that's a time to have a deep seat and a faraway look and hang on to the mane. And just like, I know this is going to work. And then he calmed down, and then he started to listen, and then all of a sudden things started to work. And it was, the first time was the most amazing experience. And after that, he caught on to it, And I caught onto it, and we formed a team to the point that I'd walk down to the barn, and all I had to do was have the horse trailer door open and say, Spirit, let's go. And he'd be right in there. Wouldn't tie him or anything, just shut the door, go up to Cuyamaca Park, open the door. There'd be lots and lots of horse trailers with people tying their horses and hanging on to them. I just open the trailer, horse would walk right out, grab the mane, flip up, and go ride. And it just blew people away. How in the world do you do that? Clear picture. Absolutely can be felt. Started with something reasonable. Did I have his attention? You bet. Was it set up so that it was the right thing that was going to happen and not the wrong thing? Not every time. But by and large, I really did think about it very carefully to be able to do that. Did I reward him? Oh, man, you bet. Back to drinking beer? Yeah. This is a horse that could suck down a Guinness Stout faster than I could. And boy, when we would finish a race, that was the very first thing that Spirit would want. He'd crack that thing, and if I went up that, I'd get bit. Okay? Out of nowhere, I had to give the Guinness Stout to Spirit, and he'd suck that thing down, then I could have mine. And we each only had one, and that was it. And did he have self-carriage? Yes. I had a lot of people that wanted to go along with us and just to be in the for their horse to experience this. But in a lot of cases, it drove the other horses nuts because they weren't at liberty, which is what this is called. And my horse was. So fundamentally, that didn't work out well. And that's something to be aware of. You know, as your mentees start to progress, etc., the ones that are coming up in the program, you need to think about how to pair them up where they have somewhat of transferable experiences, but not terribly advanced. And the other part, that's you, what we've been talking about all along. Your experiences with life and where you are on the track, you're already at self-carriage. You're out there, okay? But at the same time, they're not. They're in a curiosity stage. So we need to start at the very beginning. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn this to a little bit of work on something you've got on your desk that Susan referred to. And that is getting the mentor-student relationship off to a great start. There's just a few things that I'm not going to go through it all.
Let me just interrupt.
Yeah, sure.
1 second. Because I didn't know he was going to be here, I didn't have him in my notes, but Greg, thank you. These mentor-student relationship sheets were something that I just editorialized from our brilliant Greg Crosscup. So thank you.
So do they have the full two, or they have a shortened version? Oh, perfect.
They've got
Two-side.
the whole thing.
Two-side. Okay. Let's jump down to where it says discuss with the student. So 1, 2, 3, fourth topic area. And the second point, what does the student, okay, this underline student, what does the student want to make sure he or she gets from the relationship? Okay, that's a very important catch. Okay, so going back to what does Spirit want from the relationship right in the beginning? Stop poking him. Yeah, that's one thing. Sure, when we set up the circumstances. Anything else that he wants? More beer. And, yeah, what?
Trust.
Exactly. He's got a terrific. That's exactly it. He has, and so do your mentees, your students, have an enormous amount of curiosity, even if this is the second year. This is, okay, now what? Where's this all going to go? Okay? Remember we talked in the sort of the introduction part about your life is your message? They're going to be watching you very carefully. That was the one thing with Spirit that I noticed, that even though he wouldn't have an eye on me, their ear would always be there. He was so curious in the early goings, and that lasted for probably a couple months. Is this for real? Or am I going to go back and they're going to just give me a bucket of water once a week and a bale of hay once a month. Is that going to happen to me again? Okay? So they're watching you. Is this real? You know, you're not a pseudo-parent, but at the same time, what you do have is an example of how life can be well lived. And that is so critical. Okay? But they're not going to be able to tell you a lot in the very beginning about what they want from the relationship. So this is a thing that when Carol, when the two of you were talking, your mentor and everything, as this really started to develop in the beginning, did you talk about that? You just knew it?
About, yeah, it became, it wasn't like a, you are assigned this and this is what you're gonna do, and, yeah, it wouldn't have been, I don't know,
It wouldn't work that way, okay? But in your mentee relationship, do you ever have this conversation back and forth at all with them? I mean, sometimes it's frankly not appropriate. I mean, if they're really standoffish at the same time. So you have had that
Oh, I
conversation?
have not been a mentor before.
Ah, boy, you're going to be a great one. Yeah, you will. Yeah, you will. So, point being here is as this develops, this is something to come back to because they don't know in the beginning. They really don't know what to expect. This is a huge curiosity thing for them. The other is the next one down. What are the student expectations of you? And the second one is your expectations of the student. I go lightly there on the expectations of the student. I mean, there are certainly some things that need to be discussed because that's a part of the program. But other than the part of the program, your personal program expectations, yes. Your personal ones, maybe leave that till you get to know them a lot better. And that's the student's expectations of you are important. What do they want from this? Some may have a bit of an idea, and a lot of them probably don't. You know, they've just had some not such great experiences that haven't gone down the track the way they wanted. Back to Spirit. He had 2 owners before me, and both of them were terrible and cruel. Consequently, this is number 3. So this is going to take a little while. Anybody had a rescue dog? Okay? When you bring them home, they just love you, right? Yeah. They do, because finally somebody's going to take me in. Are they protective of you?
Yes.
Yes, and that's a problem. That's a problem. Okay? It can be. So in working with them to try to get that through, these are all things that you know there's going to be certain things up front, and you don't want to second guess it, but you can at least have an idea that this is the environment that they're coming from is likely to produce some suspicion and not a whole lot of trust right off the bat. So, all right, another one. Down at the very end, well, actually, at the bottom of your first page, being in the mentor relationship, ask, how do you want me to be as your mentor? This, it's a great question. It is. And it's going to change, and it's going to develop as your relationship changes and develops. So that's something, you know, so Spirit, what he wanted from me in the early goings, you know, was some sort of care. He wanted I'm going to do it again, okay? Yep. He wanted good spirit. That's the right direction. So he wanted contact. Now that doesn't have to be physical contact, but that's contact. Touching base with them via the phone, texting if you want to go that direction, checking in on them, okay? Just so this is real. You're not going to just see me once a month. I'm going to be involved in your life if that's what you want. And that will start to develop where they will start to talk about, this is what I really need. Initially, that might not be there, but that can develop. And what do you need most? That's a very good question, and something, once again, that they probably don't know or they can't language very clearly. The other part on accountability on the back page, how do you want me to celebrate with you? This is huge, okay? You know, so when the homework gets turned in, is it just high five? Is it spin the bottle and go out and, can't drink beer with them, come to think of it. No, you can't do that. But are there some rewards and things that might really light their fire? And as you get to know them, you're going to see what really does it. With Spirit, interesting enough, it was Guinness. It was Guinness. Yeah, so we had a really good session, a great session. You know, it was Guinness time for both of us, and that was something to celebrate. So you can't, unfortunately, do that, but you're going to have to find your own Guinness with them. As a mentor, and there's questions here for you. As a mentor, these are some of the strengths and assets I bring to this mentor relationship. I would suggest you do this now, do it in the middle of the program, and do it at the end. And remember to focus on your strengths, okay? It's so easy to tear ourselves apart. You wouldn't be here unless you had incredible strengths and some gifts that can be transferable. And that's where the 7 rules of training horses have been extremely helpful for me to understand just how things kind of work, okay, and how things can be transferable. Most things just take time, as you well know. At the same time, things that are of real value stick, okay? Your mentor relationships lasted for a very long time. Do you have any concerns? You'd want to share this with your mentor. Okay? Carol, you still have a relationship with your mentor, right? Does she know you're going to be a mentor? Well, yeah, this would be a good time to talk to your mentor, whoever your mentor is right now, and just say, you know, and this would be great for them to hear, is that you have made a big difference in my life, and I'm now have an opportunity to make a big difference in somebody else's life. And I'm not clueless, but any words of wisdom that you can share for me, because some of the greatest mentors have really thought this thing through very carefully. So, with that, anything unresolved? I want to get you out on time. Susan?
I have a question. How does Carrie poke the kid for not doing the homework?
Perfect.
If there were no good reason.
Very good. Very good. Group? Okay. How would you poke them for not doing the homework?
Well, can we just back up a minute?
Sure.
How are we gonna know if the kid does his homework?
Good.
Because we don't interact with them every day like you did with your horse.
Right.
So it's gonna be, I mean, in the past, our interaction's been, once every 2 weeks and then maybe a phone call or a text. So are you suggesting that we try and talk to these kids every day?
Oh, I wouldn't think every day. I mean, it depends on how your relationship is going to build, but that would seem maybe a little too much more like a parent.
I agree. So
Yeah.
what do you think's the right frequency?
I would think that this is going to be a part of the art form, and that you're going to find, if it was me, initially I'd say once a month's fine, but I don't mean it. Okay.
Ron and Chuck have had some experience with that.
You're on. Go ahead. You're on. At the outset of the program, with parental approval, admission, or parental, what do they call it?
Release forms.
If the parents tell us we can get copies of the student's current progress.
Right.
And I know we used homework as an example, but it might not be homework. And one of the neat things I think you can do with that when you sit down with the mentee is they can become part of the definition of what's going on here. It's kind of like setting the base. So we really can look at performance at the front end and see where they stand. And I don't think it's any surprise to them, but it is, I think it becomes a little surprising when it's shared with a mentor, and kind of the challenge is, okay, now we're looking at the same data. What do you think? What's going to work here? It kind of helps you understand whether homework's an issue, missing assignments is an issue, doesn't test well. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are going on with these kids that kind of serve as a baseline.
Even attendance.
I think,
And also, what I had to do last year is I contacted every teacher and said, I'm a mentor, permission slip it's signed. If there's a slip, will you let me know? I will keep checking on it, but I need some feedback from you because I'm not getting it from my kid. And so there are ways to go about it. Talk to the guidance counselors, talk to the teachers directly. That's why they're here. That's their job.
Right.
And so you can check up on the kids, and what has helped in my case is when I said, look, you're missing assignments when you're telling me you're turning them in. It's like, oh, I can't pull the wool over their eyes. And that helped a great deal.
They're part of the herd, the teachers.
they are. Yes,
And I think part of that you can use as a way to frame the relationship with the student, which is to say, okay, just for starters, let's look at the next month. What are your peak demands on your effort as far as homework and testing and athletics and work outside of school? So let's look at when those peak demands might be. And so can we work backward from that? When do you want me to work with you? Knowing these might be some tough times for you, especially in this first month. How can I help you get through that? And then in the process, you help them decide themselves, well, what are my peak challenges? And then
Perfect.
here's how I can ask for help. So this goes
Exactly.
to, on the mentoring relationship, the second item, which is, and I'd add this as a friendly amendment to your objectives, Joe, which is, can we help them focus on helping them develop their own capabilities?
yeah,
So regardless of what they do in grades, regardless of what they do in life, can we help them generate their own solutions? So when they come upon a problem, ideally, the best success of all is they never need us ever. They just send us notes to say, look what I did, I'm successful. Or look what I tried now, but I never tried before.
And that is a beautiful thing right there.
yeah,
Well, and that's also the skin in the game. If they're the ones who are somewhat involved, not somewhat, very involved at the front end, their commitment is their commitment, not ours. It's them.
I just wanted to capitalize on something Lab kicked off with, which I think is getting off on the right foot is really, really, really important. And he said it's a privilege to be in this program. Last year, we experienced firsthand that some kids really were embarrassed to be associated with Strive, thinking it was for the dumb kids. So I think the more the school, even before day one comes, the more the school can help set the stage before we're even there would be incredibly helpful. And then also trying to remove some of the barriers that some of the kids had. On the days we meet here at school, they had some kind of work study classes that came right up ahead of this class, and then the kids missed it. So just making sure we get off on the right foot and then putting all these great tools in practice.
Right. Right. And, to homework, that's not necessarily going to be an easy thing, or maybe it is. It's really going to depend on just how resistive that particular student is to having you involved in that aspect of their life. There's, this element of trust is built on a number of things. One, that they don't feel threatened, but they also, the other part of it is that you bring